Swinburne University of Technology.
Okay, so perhaps Fred, you could go on and talk a little bit about your strategy when you arrived at Sully.
Yeah, sure. We were a subsidiary of a large US aerospace company. They operated in the typical US manner, very heavy command control world. As you have to with a company of 250,000 employees, you have to get directives sometimes.
Yeah.
The US suffered in the GFC more than Australia did, and that elected a response that was typically harsh. And they basically said around the world, cut your workforce by 30% in a month. It's very difficult to do that without changing your business model. And if you decide to change your business model, which you have to, typically your processes and procedures can't change in 30 days, not possible. So you end up damaging an organisation quite badly. I came in at probably a year after that, but people were still shell-shocked. And I actually see that in business generally now. People are still shell-shocked in Australian business from the GFC, because it sort of came out of a bit of a bump during the mining boom, but that was almost the worst possible thing that could happen. Because it pushed the Australian dollar up, pushed resources to the west, escalated our cost structures, damaged us substantially in lots of industries. So I came in and then had a look at it, and we were dealing with because we make compressors and then service them. Our core workforce is the service people, go out with spanners and fix compressors. We were suffering 50% turnover in core staff per annum because of not providing them with the tools to do their job. So we then had to stabilise that. So we had to adapt to it, and it was also clear because we were the last major manufacturer left in Australia. Everyone else had offshored to Europe or China or wherever, which put them on a different exchange rate to us. You know, we'll remember, 2 years ago, dollar at $1.07, $1.09. Today, 75. It was 90. It was going up and down like a yo-yo, and you can't tolerate your cost of product being on a different yo-yo to your competitors. You've got to get lined up, otherwise you get eaten in the marketplace. So I made the call to offshore manufacturing, and to an organisation which at its core was an engineering manufacturing business with a hugely proud Australian tradition. That was really difficult. You know, there was not a change that people were likely to embrace. And so I had to work with my management team to craft the story, to explain very clearly current state and future state and how we were going to get there. I think we looked at, and during that period, we were sold by a parent, purchased by private equity, and there was a lot of change for people to get to grips with in the broader context. So we had to change the mindset of people and lead them on a journey from being an engineering-based company to a sales and marketing and service company. So we adopted the same approach as Apple does. You know, it's designed in Australia. We keep the unique elements of our design, which gives a better product, and we just replicated it bolt for bolt in one of our factories in China. But it's really interesting managing the change cross-cultural boundaries. My Mandarin's appalling. Their English is good. But still, it was essential to get the right outcome. We had to embed engineering staff, Australian. I took my engineering manager for Australia, sent him to China for 9 months, and he just sat and worked with some other engineers to get it right. And so we achieved a great outcome. We talked, one of our key things we always come back to is our values. You know, this thing about where do the values come from? You know, honesty, respect and integrity. Honesty means telling people what is really happening. So we spent a lot of time telling people what was really happening as early as we could. You know, in many cases 9 months, 12 months out. So they all knew where we were going. We laid out the end game at the start and said, this is what it's going to look like, this is what the business can look like, and this is how we're going to transition. Allowed us to work with our staff to get them new jobs, And I think we had about 90% success rate, which when you're talking about assemblers, often with, home country being outside Australia, English is a second language, we did quite a lot of work with outplacement consultants and other colleagues and associates around the place to get that right. So we positioned a lot of people into new careers, which was great for them. So we did lots of open early communication. We did lots of work to get the quality right, because in the end, you can't deliver a product to the customer that fails. You've got to move to a box in, out world. So we did a lot of work to get the experience right from the customer's point of view. We kept trying to put ourselves into that customer mindset. So as the investment in resources, you talk about communicate. It's number one in change management. Get out there, travel a lot. We've got branches around capital cities in Australia. Get out, talk to people. Let them inquire, let them explain what it means for them. Try not to touch the customer-facing staff. Manage the manufacturing, manage that back together.
So Fred, were there challenges in the leadership team? Was it easy? You talked about we a number of times. What was the state of the leadership team? What when you arrived?
The leadership team had to go through some substantial changes as well. We had to streamline back office. I cut the size of the leadership team in half. Amalgamated IT and finance. Took a lot more direct reports on myself. Had to eliminate the manufacturing manager's job. Not needed. Everyone, and I think this is common in most organisations, we're all flatter. We've got less shock absorber capacity within our organisations to manage change. Everyone's taking a wider brief, getting more skills, but certainly the change, and you had to be open with those guys too. My engineering manager, who went to China, he took his wife and said, I'm going to make this a real life experience. They both went up there, they spent 6 months, and really it's how do you get something good out of it? How does he build his CV to say, well, I managed the offshoring of this, I managed the transmission of manufacturing from one country to another.
So, Fred, just another question before we move on to one of the other panellists to just get a sense of their story around transformation. So what was the challenge to you personally in all of this?
It's the resilience, because I think in many organisations you're cleaning up, difficult situations. You're having to take more change. It's how do you stay resilient over 3 years? And that means staying fit, go and do some sport, go for a walk, take the dog for a walk, do things other than work. Get other interests, because you've got to role model those values. You've got to be really strong about role modelling safety. That's part of respect, is not hurting your staff, not hurting your contractors, not hurting your customers. So you've got to role model a core belief in safety. People have to see you doing stuff. So it's that, and if you're doubting yourself, or which you do, don't show it. Don't show it. You've got to, because if they go, oh, he's got the wobbles, I better brush up my CV, I'm going to look for something else to do, it's a smell of death, you're in real trouble.
This has been a Swinburne production.